members here today. No associates, no visitors.
One associate.
Oh, boy, I thought Ken was on the phone.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the meeting of February the 6th of the Council on Aging. And I want to just say hello. And has everybody looked over the minutes of last month's meeting? Any questions?
And you all should have gotten this in the packet that was emailed out to you last week.
That's why I read mine. Okay, can I entertain a motion to accept?
Nope, just another motion, because maybe a motion to reject it as well, so just a motion.
All right, can I have a motion?
I make a motion that we accept the minutes as they were. Second.
Second, okay, thank you.
Discussion.
Any discussions on it? All right. And we'll go down to the,
Let's take a vote. All in favor?
all right, all in favor?
Aye.
I'll nothing on this way.
Any opposed?
No.
You have to answer. Any opposed?
Any opposed?
Beautiful.
All right. Now we have the treasury report.
Mike supplied everybody with a copy of the budget report for January 31, 2023. The first item on the first page is the general fund, and everything there seems to be in order. If anybody has any questions on anything there, now's the time, you can ask it. We hope we can, we can answer it. Yes, but so we're halfway through the fiscal year, and we seem to be in very good shape. There will be a few transfers and changes at the end, but right at the moment, everything is in very good shape. Okay, nothing on
Just one comment to you all. In the general fund third line item, you see XX2238.9. That is not tallied, that's not counted in the totals. Last month I added that in.
Yeah, you do.
I don't know where, honestly, I don't know where I got it. I pulled all of my numbers right off of Munis, and at 2238.90 looked like it was a transfer. So when we went in this month, that wasn't there, so I contacted John just to see if there was an accounting adjustment, if that in December was put in there incorrectly, and there's no indication that was ever there. So I apologize for that. I really don't know how or where I got that 2238.90. There's an XX in front of it. It's the third line under cards. But again, it's not included in the tally. So just so that you all know. The other, well, we'll talk about that on the break.
Okay, now on to the gift fund, which is at the bottom of your page. The column dated January 2023 should have $875 in there. That was income. It has been added into the $3,775, but it got overlooked when we were going across the lines. So 3,775 is our correct year-to-date gifts, and the total in that account is $56,445.48. And again, that is an account that we are hoping when we get moved to the new building, there will be some items, nice items that we want to buy, and that they will come out of that gift account. So we have that much, 56,000, might buy a couple little things.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And we're trying to be fiscally responsible in putting into the gift funds what are appropriate to put in there, to be held in abeyance for those kind of extraordinary costs.
The big check comes from the Knowlton Foundation, which is, I think it's quarterly, or they give us a nice little donation. So that's the biggest donations that we received to date. The smaller amounts might be from meals or small donations. But we accept anything into the gift account. What is it, Paul?
On the Knowlton Foundation.
Paul, I'm gonna interrupt you, please pull the mic. Yep.
Yes, sorry. On the Knowlton Foundation, it says 875 after the parentheses. What's that in reference to?
In the Knowlton yeah, just nothing, it's a notation for me.
Oh, okay.
That's the amount of the donation we receive.
That they
Right,
give?
That's the amount of the
It
donation?
is,
Okay.
yeah.
And that's about what they give, yes.
Quarterly?
Usually, I mean, we can't hold them to it,
Right.
but usually that's about the amount that they give.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. I was just curious. Thank you.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. Anytime. Any questions, just ask. We might not be able to answer, but you. And now, on to the next page, which is the good old revolving fund, which is again in very good shape at the moment. There's $35,452.34 in there, and there were just a few expenses in January. And as things come in, like bingo, any supplies that they ask for, we purchase, and that comes out of here. And the other items were food for Hannaford's and little items at the Dollar Tree, Mason's, and other little items for events and things that we can use that money for. So with the January 23 column is what was spent this month, and year to date, we have spent $17,476.24. And as I said, we have $35,452.34 in there. Are there any questions from anybody?
I'm going to make just two notations, just so you know, Terry alluded to the $17,476.24 in expenses. We've taken in $19,557, so we're pretty close to being right on budget. We've made about $2,000 over the course of the year on various programs, and by made, that simply means we had a surplus of revenue. And in the January 2023 column of expenses, you'll notice under WB Mason a positive amount of $66. We actually had no expenses for WB Mason, but we did have refunds this month that were attributed to our account in January. So that's why it shows a positive balance and not an outflow or negative balance. And that is that.
And now, the last two pages are grants. And if Mike doesn't mind, maybe I'll let him give any explanation that you want. I mean, I understand they look all right, but I am not as good as he is as explaining them. So I will turn those over to you if you don't mind, Mike.
Yeah, let's actually go to the very last section, the State Grants Consolidated Report. What that does is it's a cumulative total of the fiscal year 2021 carryover plus expenses, the fiscal year 22 carryover plus expenses, and fiscal year 23 carryover plus expenses. That's the total of it. And so you can see those are lumped by general line items of Amazon expenses, the subscription software, food, instructors, and equipment rental, for example. So that's the total. And in 2023, we've spent $30,501.95 out of all three fiscal year grants. If we flip back a page starting in fiscal year 2021, you can see a more detailed breakdown of what those expenses look like. From food for our Thanksgiving and Christmas meals, event supplies, subscriptions like the motion picture license, and the Zavis Solutions, which is our My Senior Center software, MCOA dues, those are all lumped into, for example, subscriptions and software and dues in the last report. So in fiscal year 2021, we carried over $8,343.72. From that, we've actually spent $12,000. So looking just at fiscal year 2021, I want to let you know we've reclassed some expenses. We reclassed the 1962-98 Hannaford turkeys to the fiscal year 23 to bring that deficit back into balance. We reclassed the tables, and we reclassed, no, I apologize, we didn't. We reclassed outreach coordinator to fiscal year 2023. So you'll see from the fiscal year 2021 in the next report that the amount of expenses attributed to the outreach coordinator this year, but expensed out of fiscal year 2021, is going to be reduced, and it will be increased in the FY 2023 after that general ledger transaction is done. So that'll bring us to a zero balance for FY 2021 and allow us to close that out. There should be no other expenses in this year from the fiscal year 2021 grant. That's done. In fiscal year 2022, we haven't made any adjustments yet. You can see the vast majority of those are our instructors. They are our fun and fitness instructor, yoga instructor. We are paying for those out of available funds that are attributed to the fiscal year grant. And just know and understand that each of these is accounted for differently in the auditor's office, but not by us. So I'm breaking that down for you. If anybody ever went into Munis to see them now, they would be able to see a paper trail of where these expenses go. So that's why I broke it down for you. That's the only reason. Obviously, our subscription for my senior center software and the all-call system we have, those are the biggest by far expenses along with the outreach coordinator. And then fiscal year 2023, which you're going to see a vast change in the February report with the outreach coordinator position kind of now picking up another $3,000 in FY 2023, but we're going to zero out FY 20, not quite zero out, but close to zero out 2021 outreach coordinator, all attributed to this year's outreach coordinator expense. So we've spent some money on some subscriptions. Obviously, food is a huge one. Some racks to help us get information about our food and nutrition program out, and our housing programs out to folks, and some just general supplies that we use for events and functions. So notepads and things for our students to take notes on the programs. All of those expenses tie out perfectly to the consolidated report. So if you add 2021, 2022, and 2023 together in any particular item, you'll see the total that comes into the consolidated report. So coming into this year, we had $63,900 in FY 2023 money. And coming into this year, we had $15,952.08 from fiscal year 22 money. And coming into this year, we had $8,343 in fiscal year 21 money, which gave us a total revenue of $88,267. And of that, we spent $30,000. So we have about almost $58,000, $57,765 left. If anybody really wants to know, I'm just going to let you know again. 1962, that's $1,962.98 from fiscal year 21 was transferred, or a general ledger adjustment was made for the food, the turkeys, and the total transferred from the FY 21 to FY 23 outreach coordinator line item is $2,350.49. Any questions?
Too many funds, too many years.
There's really 4 funds, and from a practical perspective, we really just look at the 4 bottom lines, but from an accounting budgeting perspective, we look at all 6 lines, because that includes the other 2. Next year, FY 21 will be done, probably FY 2022 will be done, so all we'll have is 23 and 24, so that'll be good.
On the outreach coordinator, like in 22 and 23, we haven't really spent any. I mean, there's not outreach. What are the expenses?
So there are 2. So we call it outreach coordinator, but it's not. It's 2 positions. It's the outreach coordinator social service position, and it's our part-time admin, very part-time, 15 hours a week. So we pay for that 15-hour admin, and that's really what those expenses are. So again, it's lumped under the outreach coordinator on the general fund, but in all practical purposes, it's 2 positions. We do not have an outreach coordinator. We have the office assistant that we pay very short money and short hours too. I think it's also really important, since you brought up the outreach coordinator, for people to see this. You don't have to understand it, but I'm gonna tell you. So what we do, again, from a budgeting tracking perspective, I have to track fiscal year 21, fiscal year 2022, fiscal year 2023 for our outreach and admin positions. But it doesn't really flush through the city account anyway, even though the city pays it. So it really should. It's a salary position. So John and I talked about what's a better way, a more appropriate way to track this. So you'll see for the first time expenses under the outreach coordinator in the general fund. The city is not paying that. All of those expenses at the end of the year, right now, if we stopped paying that salary at $15.92, that $15.92 would be reimbursed from either the fiscal year 21, 22, or 23 grant. All right, just so that you know. All the expenses show up in all the accounts, but from an accounting perspective, we are now running, we just started running all of those expenses through the city's salary account, and then we'll reimburse that salary account 100% through the grant account at the end of the year, rather than running it through the grant account and trying to figure out what the salary costs are. So that's strictly a paperwork step. It doesn't actually mean that we've increased our expenses or that the city's taken that on. And that's one of the very rare, in fact, the only exception to the city budget. 100% of all the other costs are paid 100% by the city, with the exception of outreach coordinator. That's reimbursed by the state, or reimbursed through the grant. So you won't see increases moving forward. You won't see any changes in FY 21, 22, or 23 outreach coordinator expenses. All of the new expenses that are incurred are all going to be running through the general fund outreach coordinator position.
So that's why on the general fund, for the budget, it's left blank.
It's zero. Yeah, there's zero. Yep. Correct.
Okay.
That's fine.
That makes sense.
There's no money. And Terry asked me earlier, and I'm going to just give you an explanation of this as well. There are 2 overtime line items. Now, we don't really have 2 overtime line items in the city budget. But if you remember, coming into this year, coming into July, there was an adjustment, a general ledger adjustment, that reimbursed the senior center overtime budget for pool-related overtime and put it back into our budget. So we have $500 technically, but we picked up another $204.45 that was transferred back to the senior center account from the pool account. So that really gave us $704.45. Well, in December and January, we spent some money, in particular January, right? We spent $250. So if I lumped that together, if you looked at it, it would just look like we had $46 in expenses. But we didn't. We had $250 in expenses, plus the $204 credit. So I figured we wanted to see that so we could track expenses better, rather than thinking, geez, in the month of January, we only had $40 in overtime. We did. We had $250 in overtime. All right, yeah, just a clarification. And moving forward, we wanted to do it just in this report, so you saw it, but moving forward, we'll bring it back to the one line item, but I wanted people to know that. Okay.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Terry. And by the way, just again, I appreciate all the work that you do. You come in early, you review it with us. She brought up some great questions. All of those, by the way, explanations were a result of Terry's review and prodding of me to get answers to. So I appreciate your diligence and attention.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions on the treasurer's report? Okay, can I entertain a motion?
Motion to accept. I'll second.
Okay.
Very good. Any discussions on it? Okay. So voted.
Nope.
No.
You have to actually have a vote. All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Any opposed? I thought we weren't voting on the treasurer's report. It was like a set thing, wasn't it? Different?
No, we vote on it. Yeah, that's something from 2 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we vote on just to accept. We're not necessarily moving to approve or indicate that we reviewed in a deep way. It's to accept the report that's presented. Yeah.
Okay, now we're going to move on to old business.
There really wasn't any old
No, it
business.
wasn't. I was looking at nothing there. All right, then we can go to the next one, which will be new business.
All right, new business. Let's first talk about the COVID clinic. We had a very successful COVID clinic in February. In fact, we did about 180 shots that day, which was absolutely fast. 172, I think, is what we ended up exactly. 174. That's really good because most of the non-appointment based clinics are getting 14 or 15 walk-ins, period. So we're 10 times, 12 times what the average is, and have really been doing a great job. That being said, I want to acknowledge the people who made that lift possible, including all of our partners, Community Health Connections, which provides all of the clinical staff and vaccines and all of the materials for the clinic. We have the Mass Department of Public Health, which has provided us the financial incentives for folks. There's the Board of Health, which provided some logistical and specialized assistance on this regard. And in this regard, we have just so many volunteers from Chair City Pharmacy that does a huge lift for us every single time, and we're so appreciative of them. Local doctors, Dr. Harrington, Dr. Mulqueen, Paula Mulqueen, who's a local nurse, coming in and doing some heavy lift. And a ton of volunteers from start to finish, from registration to parking, did an exceptional job. And last but not least, our staff, Rob and Nancy. So really exceptional work. They've now extended the COVID incentive program through the month of March and asked us if we would host another one. So on March 13th, we're going to host another COVID clinic. I have a feeling it probably won't be as robust as the one we had in February in terms of numbers. We've shortened the hours, 12:30 to 5 instead of 12:30 to 6. It means about 30 less appointments in the schedule. In addition to the COVID clinic, we'll be offering pneumonia and shingles vaccines, specifically and publicly. That being said, pre-registration is not only urged, but is required. The reason for that is if you register somebody for pneumonia or shingles, there's a very high likelihood that their insurance isn't going to pay for it. And so we want to be able to run their insurance, see if they're eligible for a low cost or free vaccine, rather than them coming in, getting a vaccine, and then being charged $150 or $200 for the vaccine and administration thereof. So we'll give folks at least an informed choice as to whether or not to get that vaccine. But typically, most insurances for the shingles, they don't cover, or if they do cover, there's a very high copay. Not so much for the pneumonia shots. We will offer a $75 incentive, and we are still waiting to hear. I think I announced that we might get something in the line of $10,000 as a grant for the work that we're doing with the COVID clinic. That does not seem likely, but it's still going to be substantial, probably to the level of $6,000. So $6,000 we can do a lot with. We'll put it into the gift fund, put that in abeyance until we into our relocation. That's what I have for the COVID clinic. Any questions on that? Perfect. Oh, pull the mic up.
I have one question. Are there any new shots that will be given here that any of us that have received all of our shots up until this point that are going to be given?
So the new way of thinking is like every 2 to 3 months getting the update because of the new variants. So if you haven't had one within the last 2 to 3 months, 90 days, we urge and encourage people to come. But if you just got it last month, you don't need one in the March shot. There were a number of people that contacted us that weren't eligible for the vaccine in February for a number of reasons, primarily because of health conditions and having COVID, and they were just under the amount of time that they were encouraged to wait before getting the vaccine. They are now eligible, but for that, I don't know. And it's changing. The landscape of this is changing. The messaging is changing every day. We don't really have a good idea on what the frequency is going to be, but I would say settle in for a minimum of a shot a year, just like you get your rabies shots.
You talk.
No, I figure at least once a year. So, we'll make arrangements for that. We typically do a flu clinic in the fall. We'll do it as part of the health fair, and we'll also continue to offer the shingles, pneumonia, COVID vaccines. We'll have a 4-vaccine clinic in October. All right, no questions on that. With your permission, Mr. Director, Mr. Chair, I'll go to the director's report.
Yes, you may.
All right, as you all have heard, terrible news. Most important business of the day. Rob Cormier, our facilities manager, has opted to take another position in the city, another agency, and is moving on at the end of this week. In fact, it's his last day. You know, I often talk about the relationship I have with the staff, and they're exceptional. They never say no. They're willing to roll up their sleeves to do anything. Certainly, Rob meets and fits that description. He has been a trusted colleague. He has been a hardworking and dedicated employee of the Senior Center. And more importantly, he's been a real friend and companion to the staff and to the seniors that come here. So from my perspective, it's a huge loss to us. I'm going to miss him. I'm going to miss his personality and his work ethic, his understanding of the systems and why we do some of the things we do. Without question, he is a dedicated and loyal employee that is certainly going to add a lot to the new agency that he's going in. So, from my perspective, I wish him the very best. No, I do wish him the very best. I was going to say I wish him ill and he'll come back in a week, but he won't. And it's a great opportunity for him. This is particularly troublesome for us as we start to look at and explore the tasks that are going to be associated with moving. That facilities person is going to have a heavy hand in that, huge role, and that person is going to have to get acclimated to very quickly what the jobs and tasks are going to be for that move, including contracting to move sheds and pods and furniture and all of that stuff, and dismantle some of the stuff that's here that will go down to the new location. So a big lift for the next person coming in, but I'm sure they'll be able to do it.
Do they have the job posted? The
They-
city have
They
the
do,
job posted?
yeah. The day we got the notice, we got it on Friday, the following Monday it was posted. It has to be posted internally. There are some internal city candidates that are interested in the position. We'll interview them. I believe it's also been posted externally now, but we have to interview the internal candidates first. And there are some good candidates, no doubt about it. I don't think we would be in a bad position with these folks. Again, they're very personable. I haven't worked with them, but they seem to do a really good job at where they are. So I don't think we'll be in the same position we were with someone who's been here for 6 years and really knows the system, but I'm hoping that whoever we hire, will be certainly able to do the job, and more importantly, work with the staff and the seniors here. As much as it's about skills, we really push behaviors because we can teach skills. I can teach somebody to set up a room. I can't teach someone to be caring and considerate and empathetic and kind. So those are more the important attributes we're looking for than being able to type.
I was just thinking it might be a good time for us having a new person coming in because they've got the layout of what the building is and what they're expected from here. So when they get to Walker Street, they got a whole new building to
Set up as their building.
as the way they want to work it, whatever. Yes.
Yeah.
Can I assume that you haven't started?
I can't hear you.
Oh. Can I, can't hear me. Can I assume that you haven't started interviewing anybody yet, right?
We're starting this week. We have interviews scheduled this week.
And were you hoping to get somebody in, you've got like a timetable?
Yesterday. But like all hiring, that's fluid. Obviously, we want to get them in as soon as possible if we have a great candidate, when we can offer quickly. There's also a little bit of a nuance to this position. It's not only the facilities maintenance manager here, it's the facilities maintenance manager at the pool. It's a dual role. So especially in the summer, getting the pool ready to open, and then doing the things that need to be done throughout the summer season to keep it running, and at the end of the season, late August, early September, closing the pool and shutting it down. So there's a 3-month, 4-month period where they're working as intimately with the pool staff and pool director as they are here. So that, again, takes a special kind of person to be able to get the logistical stuff, understanding, capacity to run the pool as much as it takes to go here. So it's going to be a little bit of a challenge to find that right person and that right mix. Any other thoughts or questions about All right, let me give you the 30-second, 30,000-mile overview of what's been happening. First of all, for those of you who attended the BJ Farrell event, it was awesome. She was everything we hoped she'd be, very personable, interacted well with the staff, and took questions and answers after. Even though she was on a tight schedule, she stayed and accommodated the long line of people, I call it the receiving line, folks that had questions, thoughts, comments, and wanted to share experiences with her. I'm really very appreciative of the time she took out of her schedule to come to Gardner. It was a snowy day that day, and she drove alone from Boston and made the trek here looking for a port or call. But there wasn't any in Gardner, so she still did remarkably well. It was a good program. We had a lot of veterans there, and we had 2 Gold Star parents in the room, which for me was a very special occasion to be able to talk to them about their experiences and the sacrifice their children gave for our country, and being able to share that during the program with PJ Farrell. In addition to Commander Farrell, we had the Middlesex County Volunteer Pipe and Drum Band. They were remarkable. Big shout out to Chris Wellbeing and Chair State Pharmacy for setting that up. Chris is one of the drumline guys, and for those of you who don't know Chris from Chair City, he was in the drumline in UMass, and has kind of really made his name doing this. They appeared at the Boston Pops. Spectacular presentation by all that participated, so appreciative. Talked about the COVID clinic on March 13th. We have the St. Patrick's Day event, an Easter event. Every month we have something big coming on. Quabbin Valley has asked to do a monthly program for us here at the center on the 4th Wednesday of every month. Not the last, but the 4th Wednesday of every month, so Quabbin Valley will be here. Michelle Warren continuing in that role for Quabbin Valley. In addition, I just want to remind folks that we have a couple opportunities for volunteers, guests from the community in particular. We have a guest caller at bingo every week. Every single week we bring somebody into the community. We've had the presidents, vice presidents of Haywood Hospital. We've had the chief quality control and compliance officer from Community Health Connections, Rick Walton from Gardner Hospital. I mean, we're just trying to get folks in. A lot of folks from the city, a lot of my department heads, and it does not go unseen, but sometimes it goes unspoken. How appreciative I am of them. They have their own jobs to do and so much work to do, but they still come and support us for 2.5, 3 hours a month to get, to call bingo at the senior center. It's really important for us to do this. Again, it's not just to have a body there. I can find a body every week if I needed to. But the idea here was to bring folks into the center that our seniors may have to encounter in a normal experience when they're paying their excise tax or the real estate tax, or they're looking for an abatement on their property, or they're filing for a building permit, to meet these people and get to know these people and interact with them. So really has been an important part of our volunteer structure here at the Gardner Senior Center. Similarly, every week on the same day, we have the bread and pastry raffle. Many of you on the board have come and called for that and have left unscathed, so that's good. Nobody's, and by the way, people think bingo is brutal, but it's really not. The folks at bingo are so unbelievably supportive of our volunteers, many of whom have never called or been to a bingo in their life. So they do a great job. And the bread, I just want to encourage you, if you have a Thursday morning, you want to come down for half an hour, maybe 40 minutes, and pick the raffle balls for those in attendance. We'd love to have you. You'll be supported by our staff and our 2 primary volunteers on that, Quimby and Bob. So you won't be thrown to the wolves. They're going to help you out. It's really a pretty good event.
It's a fun thing to do.
It's a lot of fun. It is fun. Yeah, people are getting something, so they're always happy. Even if they're the last one called, they're happy because they're getting, something to bring home to snack on, a feast on. This past week, we started 2 important programs here at the Gardner Senior Center. Our tax aid program. Our tax aid program filled up almost 3 weeks ago. 100% of our appointments. We do appointments from 8:30 to 12:30 every Tuesday from now until April 4th. So we're at capacity. We're over capacity. We do build a waiting list, but and tax aid very generously affords our staff who have simple returns the opportunity to have their returns done. So that's a whole other day that they're doing that. This week, we also had Paul Fitzpatrick from LPL Financial. Paul came in and did some office hours and met with seniors about their retirement investment questions they have. He's not selling the product. He doesn't sell his own. He's just giving very general information. we're so appreciative of Paul taking the time out to be here every month now on the second Tuesday at 3 o'clock. Care Central DNA is starting a new program with us. They have been coming in and doing blood pressure. Some days we get a lot of people, some days we get none. So they've asked instead to start doing a program, a very specific program. Our first program in March will be on slips and falls and fall prevention. We invite folks to do that, and that will be a monthly program brought on and supported by our friends at the Gardner VNA. It's not the Gardner VNA, it's Care Central VNA, I apologize.
As far as the taxes go, I noticed that there's a 1040 SR or senior tax form.
Yep.
Is that something we could access from here in your forms?
Oh, absolutely. So it's a good question, and the answer is yes on two levels. First and foremost, we have a tech center downstairs that now has a printer. Now we're out of toner, we get a new toner for the printer, and that toner runs out quickly because folks are printing things like Chinese food menus, many pages. But that's a service that we have committed to providing, so we do that. So if somebody wants to come in and do any kind of research or print anything, they can do it here at the center with our 2 workstations. We put in a request to double those workstations at a new location, so we'll have at least 4 workstations at Waterford, we hope, with printers, so you can go in if you're computer savvy. If you're not computer savvy, 2 really cool things have happened recently. Well, let me first tell you, if you're not computer savvy and our staff is available, we'll do it. We'll go through it with you. And as you all know and have heard, we've worked literally many dozens of CHAMP applications for housing. We've assisted many dozens of people with their Medicare and their Social Security applications. So when we have the time, we can set up appointments with people, we're able to do that. But now, on the first Wednesday of every month, in the morning from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., every single first Wednesday of the month, we will have a benefits enrollment specialist in the center. Their only job is to help people go through whatever application they're going through. Maybe that application is a disability application. Maybe that application is the Massachusetts driver's license. Maybe that application is for a job at the senior center. Whatever that application is, the benefits enrollment specialist will be there to assist in that regard every single month from 9 to 2 p.m. So that's kind of a cool function. So the answer is yeah, we can help you get the tax form and also kind of send you some additional resources. While we're on the topic of taxes, Mock just sent us some information that they are now doing taxes as well in the Fitchburg location, so if people need appointments. All of the tax aid programs in the community are pretty much full, with the exception of Templeton. We had heard had a few slots a week ago. I can't imagine those slots are still available, but if folks are interested, they can call Mock. They can call the Templeton Senior Center. And the Mount used to do a volunteer tax preparation program too. We haven't been able to connect with the Mount to find out if they're doing that again this year, but we certainly hope they will. Coming up this month for programs, we have our Light Tea. We have a ton of interest in that. It's going to be a great program. We have 3 presentations, one on the history tea, one on the types of tea, and one on the etiquette of tea parties. So all short presentations, but it'll be informative and educational in nature, as well as yummy. We have Kenny Meehan, Ken's a local chef cook, who's going to come in and prepare some sandwiches and some delicacies for us that day. So it'll be a kind of a neat little event. We have our knockout pool tournament coming up in March. We try to do that now twice a year, and it is nothing like regular pool. So if you are a pool aficionado and think you're going to come in and be a pool jockey, it's just the opposite. It really is like a scramble format in golf. It really caters to the people who have very high handicaps as opposed to very low handicaps. So if you're not a great player, then this is the thing for you. And we'll get about 18 or 20 players for that, typically. And last but most important thing, well not most important thing, but as important thing, we recently have received a few donations. I want to thank Walgreens for the very generous donation of just a ton of brand new DVDs. A ton. I bet you there are, I'm going to guess there are 100, if there are any. But we have our folks counting them now. They just continued the DVD program and gave us all of their unsold DVDs. So that's kind of neat. We're very appreciative of them. Paul.
How did the warming center do this weekend?
Warming center, so that's a great question. So the warming centers, we opened so far 3 times in the last month as a warming center. And previous to that, we've opened as well and not seen a lot of interest. But we got a number of people during the day. A number of people came in during the day, which I was very surprised at, but none during the evening. Nobody came during the evening. So I was surprised, but not really. I think what we should know about the warming center is that the service is there and available to folks that may experience an emergency, but nobody did. So that's the beautiful thing, is in a kind of 24-hour duration event, as like myself, I would probably seek out family and friends first to hunker down for a day. But if it were more than one day, I might consider going to a center. I think that's what happened, because it wasn't a long duration event. People who may have experienced the need just found that need was met through another avenue. As we closed, so we closed about 9 o'clock on the first night. We posted signage: if you're in need of services, shelter services, just call. We left the number for folks to call. We can get any calls. And then this past weekend, Friday night, we were here late. We stayed open for the warming center. And then Saturday, the police department community center opened, community room opened. I don't think they saw anybody either.
Can I just say something? I happened to stop after a couple of appointments, and I was running errands today. I stopped at the police department, and I spoke to one of the gentlemen in the police department. I don't know who it was behind the yellow mirror. And I asked if they had any takers for the warming center on Saturday evening. I told them I was here, who I was, and I was here till late afternoon. And they said nobody showed up at all that night.
Yeah.
And he said nobody showed up at the police station last Saturday night.
Oh, Friday night,
Saturday.
yeah.
Yeah, nobody showed up there, he told me.
Yeah, and I think, again, that's just because it wasn't a long duration event. If you remember going back to the ice storm, where we were out for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, our shelters were pretty full. But there wasn't a huge need. I also want to thank the folks that helped support us, Michelle Curry, the folks from Whitson's, who provided some food to allow us to prepare in the event that we had some folks. So we got, ready-made condensed soup, we got some pasta sauce, things like that, to be able to provide, and we're ready and prepared to make those and serve those meals to folks that may have been here. So pretty good overall response, but thankfully, and we're certainly not complaining, thankfully there was no need. I want to say Ron was here late Friday afternoon, evening, but we have a number of volunteers that showed up just to help keep us company and to help in case a folks showed up and needed assistance, saying, going to the bathrooms or getting the food or whatever it might be. So to all those folks, and crikey, I bet you we had over the course of the afternoon and evening, they stayed into the evening. Our last volunteer left about 6:30. Thank you for coming out and just hanging out, playing cribbage and doing puzzles and watching TV and keeping us company while we're here. We do have, and Ron knows this, and you should all know this, we do really try to adhere to a two-deep philosophy, a policy. So we try not to be alone in the center during non-working hours. If we have to extend those working hours, we'll try to have at least 2 people here, whether it's 2 staff or staff and volunteer. We don't typically ever open to just volunteers. If there are people in the building, we need to have a staff person with them. But just for people's safety, and God forbid somebody experience a health emergency, we want to have a second person here, right? Whether it's a volunteer or staff member, or there's some other incident. We want to make sure there's somebody here to be able to call the ambulance or call the fire department, call police, whatever that response might look like. So we really try to adhere to that. And these folks, these volunteers, really helped us manage that system. I'm a little bit old school, and I apologize. I don't mean to be condescending to anyone, but I just think that we need to be vigilant. We need to be aware that sometimes there's some bad characters out there, and if there are, we need to make sure we put into place those policies that keep us all safe. So that's the reason, and again, I thank hugely those volunteers that not only, it was funny, we put out the call to help and so many people answered it. The last bit of information I give you is we received a donation of furniture, and you may be saying what we need furniture for, but part of our plans is to build out the library and technology center with a little lounge. So this year, we started to incorporate that. We took out the old institution chairs, put in some rocking chairs to make it a little bit more comfortable and inviting for folks. In the new place, our idea was to maybe reach out to one of the furniture companies and see if they might donate some more casual furniture, a couch or 2 chairs. But somebody recently donated and gave us access to a beautiful living room set with nice coffee tables and ottomans and lamps, as well as some other furnishing that we are going to, as part of our acquisition of those items, bring to the Gardner Emergency Housing Mission so that they have those items. And the benefactor asked us to do that, and we said, you know, while we're moving furniture, we can move a bedroom set. So that's pretty easy. Very nice. I appreciate that person. We're going to announce who that is once we pick up the furniture. They're still in the process of trying to settle their estate, so there's probably a little bit of need to be, you know, discreet or non-public about that. I think, ladies and gentlemen, that is all I have. If I missed anything, I'll make sure to bring up next one. Any questions, thoughts, comments?
Only one thing on the agenda, the very bottom. Next meeting is really March 6th, not February 6th.
The agenda?
Oh.
Today's
Oh, jeez. You know, it's interesting. No, this is it's funny on mine. Look at your second page. The second. The first page was, I brought it in from last month. I apologize. Yeah, it's actually, the real agenda is on the second page.
Doesn't matter, I just pointed it out. Our next meeting is March 6th.
It is March 6th. March 6th, 2023. Any thoughts, comments? Thank you. Oh, there is one last thing. So
I was going to mention something also, so go ahead.
probably under new business, we should put under new business and then old business for next month, if you make a note of that, Kath. On the very last page, the last 2 pages, you'll see the proposed ordinance change to Section 2 of Chapter 13, Code of the City of Gardner, entitled Council on Aging, Membership, Term of Service, Term of Office. As you know, we've been discussing this for months. We need to start getting both the city charter and the bylaws of this group kind of back into sync. As we move to the new location, things like our location are going to have to be changed. But one of the things our current bylaws and ordinance require are dedicated specific seats for AARP and Golden Age. And there was a need for that some time ago when those groups were not assimilated really well into the senior center. But we've been working hard to support and more collectively engage with those organizations. And just looking around the table right now, and Ron and I talked about it with the mayor, as we were preparing for the letter from the mayor, is that the vast majority of us serve in both, at least one of those other organizations, so whether it's AAP or Golden Age. So just going across, we have 5 members here that I know of that are in Golden Age, AARP, and on this board. So having dedicated positions for that doesn't really make a lot of sense. It will allow for us to expand opportunities for more active engaged participation from outside of those organizations, where there may or may not be identified need, right? We may say, going forward, just having an AARP person is a good thing for the next 3 years. The AARP, the Golden Age members, they get appointed for a 1-year term. All others are 3. So this would also bring into conformity all of the slots on the Council on Aging into 3-year terms. Congratulations, Pat. 3 years. 4 more years, Pat. 4 more years. Yeah, and I think one of the nice, I'm going to say I think one of the nice things is it gives us a little bit more flexibility. For example, Pat is the AARP representative. But moving forward, Pat can serve on this board without having to have that appointment by AARP. For those of you who don't know, I'm the AARP president. So that would be a strange thing for me to be the representative and the director on this board. So again, it gives us a little bit more flexibility. And the other thing it does is this ordinance provides a mechanism to replace members who leave before the board term expires. for whatever reason, whether they move, they're just sick of it, or illness, injury, or death, God forbid. So it allows us the opportunity to do that. And we have been just vastly supported, gratuitous plug for our elected officials. I'm as a director, I feel totally engaged and supported. There's nothing I ever wonder about or am concerned about bringing to the attention of the mayor, the city council, or the welfare committee. They're very responsive. For those of you who don't know, our representative, John Zlotnick, has taken the lead on the building down at Waterford Street. He's giving us enormous amounts of time, energy, and resources to make sure the senior center, does well down there, and that the center does well, right, as a community center. So, we've been very lucky to be engaged at that level, and I want to thank the mayor for being so supportive of this recommendation and putting that forth before the council.
Is there a set in stone date for moving to the, do we have an actual date?
No, it's a great question, and again, I give a lot of credit to, this is a very fluid project, so I give a lot of credit to John, Representative Zlotnick, who's taking the lead on this, the mayor's office, and all of those folks involved. There is a lot to it. It's not just simply a renovation project, it's a renovation and collective, right? It's a collective community center. So negotiating and working with and talking to the various organizations and building out leases. When you just think about the lease and the property, what needs to be done, and then hiring and bidding out and hiring the contractors that need to do work. There's a lot of work to be done, Ken. I mean, I say a lot of work, it's not just like painting a room. So we have unit ventilators or heat splits, we have drop ceilings, the whole renovation of public restrooms in the building need to be done.
Just to get the supplies.
Yeah, that's a real thank you, Pat. So that's one of the things we talked with Representative Zlotnick about. He was, he would love to have it done tomorrow if he could, but the reality is, contractors aren't hungry for work, so there aren't a million out there. We may be delayed by just the availability of contractors to do the work, and then supplies, getting the items. There are just a lot of things that are delayed or not available right now because of the supply chain, which still has enormous constraints on it. So we're hoping, we're still shooting for, sometime between September and November. But, that is not etched in stone. And I think Ron and I have talked about that in our public access meetings is, folks, there's work to be done, and we don't know when that work is going to be done. I know that people are very, excited about getting it done as soon as possible moving in there. And it sure as heck would be nice to get in there before the winter season, not have to heat, take care of 2 buildings, and also, to move when there isn't snow on the ground. So I think that's everybody's goal, but that's not etched in stone. Yeah.
I have a quick question too about the extension buildings that they had offices in for special education. Is that included in any part of the deal?
The annex building?
Yeah.
The annex. So again, this is fluid. I think there was some discussion about that building and its possible use. A lot of things were floated around, including adaptive reuse by other organizations and demolition. I don't think that's been ironed out yet. That building may stay and be used for another agency that's looking for space. It may go. I'll just say from my perspective, and to say this diplomatically, it's not really something we're worried about or concerned about. Another agency may be moving in there, and if they do, I think all ships rise together and float together in a rising tide. So if we have a number of agencies in there, we're all going to do better. Yeah, and I think people need to know, even the stuff we've talked about is not etched in stone. It's still fluid. We're working with the folks that are kind of spearheading this to get some things, firmed down, but the reality is it's too soon to do that. Even though we're eager, we'd like to be in tomorrow. But, we recognize it's a process, and we're all going to have to be patient. All of us.
Back to the letter.
Yep.
On February 2nd, this was sent over to the mayor.
Yep.
Lizzie. You haven't heard back yet, have you?
No, so I don't know. I assume that the ordinance was going to go before the council. And I'm totally out of my league here talking about this, but I think this is the way it goes. I think it goes to the council. Council reviews, and it's generally referred to the committee that oversees it, unless it's a non-issue. So they may take it up at the council meeting, which I think is tonight. I think it is. But I'm not sure. I didn't see it on the city council agenda for tonight. So yeah, the meeting is tonight. The meeting is absolutely tonight. Whether this is going to be taken up tonight, right, or if it's going to be in 2 weeks. And what they'll do at the meeting is totally, at their whim. If the council wants to review it more, they'll send it back to the committee, the welfare committee, which oversees the council on aging. If they don't have an issue with it, then they'll just do it.
So basically, it's the person who's on the Golden Age and AARP, are they going to be still voting members?
So they'll be eliminated. So there'll still be 7 members appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the city council. There'll still be 7. And right now, the Council on Aging board requires the AARP to designate a representative who then goes before the mayor. That nomination, if you will, or that appointment goes before the mayor and then is subject to the review and confirmation of the city council. So even though it's a dedicated seat for representative AARP and a dedicated seat for representative Golden Age, they still have to be appointed technically by the mayor and confirmed by the council. We're just simply eliminating the designation of a representative. It'd be like having a representative from, I don't know, any other agency. Why do that and allow us 7 members from the senior community who are eligible to serve? So just like the other 5, have these 2 be open seats that would go for a 3-year term instead of a 1-year term, because remember, the AARP and Golden Age leadership changes every year, and therefore the representative could change every year, or it could change. It could. I could designate it at any time. Well, president does. Yeah. Yeah.
The council, the Golden Age board, we're appointed for probably 2 years.
Okay.
2 years.
Yeah. So the representative is only 1 year. Just so you know, the representative to the Council on Aging is a 1-year appointment. It is not a 2-year appointment. It's 1 year.
So they would submit as non-voting.
They are voting members. They vote right now. The council.
Yes, I understand that, but with this amendment, they would be non-voting.
There would be no representative specifically designated by AARP or Golden Age on the Council on Aging. There would be 7 general members.
If they wanted to inform us of any new things that were during the organization, they could do reports during that meeting, during the meeting.
I would hug you if I could. And the answer to that is, yeah, that's one of the things is we're trying to be more engaged. So if, say, the Golden Age Club had a particular issue or concern or need, they could come to this meeting and we could address it at this meeting. These are open to the public, but they can certainly address, speak to Ron or I and get on the agenda. Piece of cake. And I think that's one of the other things we want to say is, I think there's been a little bit, not a disconnect, but there's been this, and Pat, maybe you can allude to it a little bit better, but this belief that there should be more than an arm's length relationship between the Council on Aging and these organizations. And I believe there should be a very intimate relationship because, AARP, Golden Age folks, and Council on Aging people are all the same population, and we shouldn't necessarily be competing over them, but rather working together to enhance the collective good of the 3 organizations. And that was really the belief or the position we took when we first talked about it more than a year ago.
You know what else is very attractive about this is that being a former associate member, I think my term was for 3 years as an associate member. Sometimes you feel like you're not part of the meeting because you're not voting on things. We're now allowing 2 other people to join the board who happen to not be officers, but if an officer does leave, they would have an opportunity to be on. It's like almost like on standby if they wanted to be an officer in case somebody is no longer serving on the board as an officer. So I think that's a very attractive feature and a good selling point if you have to sell it to the city council.
Huge, yeah. This is putting the horse before the cart, or the cart before the horse, whichever one, wagging the dog. So Ron and I, we were asked to consider a letter of support in anticipation that I thought it was going, and rightly so or admittedly so, I was not following this as closely as I should have been when I first put in the request today. They moved this quickly, and that again speaks hugely to the supporter focus that our city leaders have on the Council on Aging and doing what they can to support us. So this was a quick turnaround. We had to get this to the council president so that it could go out in the packets. So we sent it on Friday, and we talked a little bit. You know, the board was in support of it. We had talked about it. We had delayed changing our bylaws, but not the code, until we had the code. T had done the research, unbeknownst to me, and had made these recommendations to there and there, therefore to us, to go ahead and do this change. We sent this without the full support of the board. So I'd like to ask Mr. Director if you would entertain just getting a formal motion from the board relative to this correspondence and whether or not they support or don't support this endeavor.
Okay, so everybody has overlooked the letter that we drafted, that Michael and I worked on, and sent off to the mayor and to President Kaczynskis of the City Council. So looking to see if you approve of the letter and forward to work on getting more of the...
I'd like to make a motion that this is reviewed by the City Council and approved.
Okay. That's it. Okay.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on it? I think we already did the
A
discussion.
little bit of discussion, a little mea culpa here. I apologize for not being ahead of this and asking if you to support it after we sent the letter of support. But I know we talked about it, and that was your inclination. But I don't like to generally do that. So thank you for your indulgence in this matter.
Yeah, I had talked to Alan
I'm going to ask you to pull that mic closer, Pat.
I had talked to a representative of City Hall 8-10 years ago in regards to doing this, and was told that having to change an ordinance or a bylaw is very, very difficult. So I hope that you have, more success in getting this done.
Me
Thank
too. All right, so there is a motion, and there's a second. And ask for
Okay, everybody in favor of the change?
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? Okay, we're all set.
All right, that's it for me, sir.
Okay, well, the only thing I want to mention is because you've gone through all the things on the new business and all that, and I had circled it on my newsletter. I want to remind everybody who's watching that they want to know what's going on with the move and all that. Michael and I are going to be here on the 21st of February, and at 1 o'clock, I believe it is. And we're going to have a discussion group and information group. We did one last month, and we had a good turnout. I think we had 25, 30 people here. So we're looking for the same type of turnout. Hopefully the weather will be nice. And that'll be in 2 weeks, 21st. So why is it here in this room?
There's a lot of excitement, so I hope you're hearing the same thing, but if you're not, we want to hear that too. I'll just make a comment. At the last public meeting we had, some folks from the neighborhood came in and they wanted to hear about it. And one of their concerns was like trash and security. And for folks that know how we operate here, I'm very diligent about that. I don't often let things go when somebody dumps here. In fact, I never have. So we talked a little bit about that, and they explained to us that there was a mattress in the lot. We called DPW to have it removed, and then within the week, 6 days later, Ron and I were throwing the mattress on the back of our truck.
Sand that day.
We were doing sand for seniors and wanted to go over and see if it was gone. It wasn't gone yet, so we took it to the dump. Again, made a call to the assistant director of the Board of Health on a Saturday morning to ask her to give us permission to dump a mattress so it didn't look like it was coming from our house. And she took the call, she answered the call, she called the landfill and said, hey, they're coming down. To be able to have access to people who aren't working on a Saturday is really pretty good. So to Angela and Lauren, thank you for all your help, and that was done. So I'm hoping they see that we're going to be a very responsive and responsible neighbor.
Well, the day we were up there, the people waved to us when they were walking up.
They came out, yeah.
They came out on the deck and back away and saying thank you and nice talking. Just the other day, we were having a meeting here, and I introduced myself again. I said, I saw you outside. I said, just let me know who I am. And I said, if you see a little tin car driving around the parking lot sometimes, that's me just checking and see if there's anyone stuck around the rubbish barrels there in the dumpsters. That's not supposed to be there. So they said, thank you.
We're not to belabor this point, but I do want to say to the board, please be aware of that. That, I mentioned earlier the great work of our staff, but the staff are really invested in this building. And that means sometimes they're here late, They're working on weekends, working every Saturday. I don't get paid for that. We're here generally very late into Friday afternoons, because sometimes that's the only time people can meet with us, every Friday. So, we try to balance that with their lives as well, to make it a reasonable expectation. And there are some limits, and we don't push the limits on the union contracts, but we want our staff to know how very appreciative we are for the extra lift they do. So that's just important for us as a board, for us to know. All right.
Very good. Any other? Go ahead.
I just wanted to give an update on my workshop.
Oh, yeah, I was going to bring that Paul back in. Yeah.
I told them we should want the class of 12 to 15. We have 24 signed up for February. And we had another 15 or 20 that were on the waiting list. So Nancy twisted my arm and said, why don't we hold another workshop in March? The March workshop will be for newbies as well. And then we had more calls for it, so it's rolling over to another workshop in April.
You're not going on the payroll, Paul.
That was my next question. Although I did have my expenses for you.
So just a side note, and for everyone watching here, our board doesn't meet just once a month, and I want to thank Paul for taking on the basketry class, the basket league, which people are loving in Big South. But every Monday now, we started once a month when we first kicked it off, and now we go every single Monday. We have the Writers Club that's sponsored and facilitated by our own Paul Crowley, so thank you for that.
That's why I was late again today.
Yeah.
We meet right downstairs.
Yeah, so he's explained the reason he was late is they start at 1 o'clock and go from 1 to 2, and then he runs up to the board meeting on the first Monday, so the other 3 he's free. But the message to folks that are listening and watching as we try to end today's meeting is, if you have a particular skill or interest, there are other folks in our community that probably have that similar skill or interest. Come and talk to us, let's do a program. We'll be able to do more programs on bigger space, more opportunities to do more programs simultaneously when we go to Waterford Street. So we're looking for folks that are willing to lead and develop and create those opportunities. So please give us a jingle.
I heard that the quilling program went rather well as well, right?
Quilling's doing awesome. Karen Oliveri. We have the book club with Rose and Terry doing exceptionally well.
Increases,
Yeah.
they're still small, but they were up to 12, 13, sometimes 15.
Yeah, and it's all about creating engagement. We're going to be looking at some new programs. As we talk about this, I'm going to end with this last, I promise it's awesome. In Mary Jane, we're going to be doing a big program for our volunteers. Can't really announce the date because it hasn't been secured yet, but it will include kind of a nationally known speaker and afford us the opportunity to celebrate the volunteer work here. So really excited about the support we get from the community and the folks that make things happen. Please come and be engaged.
Okay. Anything else anybody wants to bring up?
Well, I just want to add to the move. The people upstairs, the CAC, they are very excited, and they hope it will be sooner than later. But anyway, that's a very excited bunch, and they're getting ready to move at any moment's notice.
Okay. Can I make the next meeting? Well, the next meeting will be March the 6th. 2 o'clock in the afternoon, so we'll see everybody on at that time. So can I have a motion to adjourn for today?
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Okay, very good. Any discussion? Any, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Very well then. See you all on March 6th.